So there's a lot of diverse morphology and behaviour in nature, in particular when it comes to the social communication of many animals, trying to attract mates, defending a territory. There is a clear benefit for these animals to be conspicuous so that they can be detectable and that their social signals can be effective. But of course, there is this problem that you're not only going to attract the attention of your intended receivers, your potential mate, for example, but also predators who use the conspicuous morphology and behaviour of their prey to localise them in the environment. Now, within species, this cost of predation is inherent in some of our models of sexual selection. So, for example, the handicap principle, only the best males can incur the cost of having a conspicuous ornaments, for example, a long tail plumage, which could impede the locomotor capacity of these males. So that's a cost. Now, across species, the cost of predation can actually result in differences between species depending on the type of environment that they live in. If they live in a high predation environment, there is a trade-off with being conspicuous with the increased risk of predation. So there are situations, of course, where animals are actually deliberately advertising their location to predators. And there are spectacular examples of this in nature. These are the evolution of warning signals. Often these prey are toxic or unprofitable in some capacity, and they're deliberately advertising to predators not to attack them because of this. Now, there are clear benefits to both the predators and the prey, but evolutionary biologists are particularly fascinated by the evolution of these warning signals because there is this initial paradox. How does this signal initially evolve in a population? Initially, predators are going to be naive to that warning signal. So how can that warning signal in the prey proliferate through the population? So how can it evolve? One of the key hypotheses is this notion that predators are actually conservative in the type of prey that they go for. They only attack those prey that they're familiar with, the ones that they know is profitable because they've targeted them before. Now, this conservatism could be enough to open the door for the evolution of novel conspicuous signals. Now, this notion of predator conservatism is actually highly relevant for the evolution of conspicuous social communication as well, because it should also open the door to basically reduce or maybe even avoid the cost of predation on the evolution of novel conspicuous signals. So it could really kickstart the evolution of conspicuous social signals as a consequence. For a number of years now, I've been working with my longtime collaborator, Indra Neil, and we've been studying the Draco lizards of Southeast Asia. In particular, what I'm going to talk to you today about is this character on the screen. This is a male Draco symmetranus. He is using this dewlap that's brightly coloured to advertise to mates and also in territorial defence. The shot that you have on the screen here is the field site. This is on campus of the University of Malaysia. And each one of these trees has a territorial male on it. And they spend a hell of a lot of time doing these dewlap displays. The bouts are about 5 to 30 seconds, and they produce these bouts every 2 to 3 minutes. So basically, they're doing it all day. It's a big deal for them. So how do you measure predation in the wild? The common approach is to deploy clay or plasticine mimics and quantify the number of those mimics that have been attacked by the impressions left in the plasticine or the clay. It's a really powerful approach if it's done carefully and conservatively. But the issue is it's a static prey model. So how do you study or quantify predation on a conspicuous behaviour? So the solution I came up with is to marry this common technique of plasticine model with robotics. And here I can program this robot to perform the display in exactly the same manner as these lizards do in life. I can also position these robots exactly where these lizards, these prey, hang out in the environment, up in the trees in the same orientation. And we can match the morphology of these robot mimics to the real thing very precisely. I'm not going to go into detail here, but this is work by Tom White, confirming the differences in conspicuousness of the different color morphology of these robotic lizards in relation to a conspicuous control that I'm going to go into in just a moment. There were 4 treatments, a robot that had the dewlap always out. Now, this is unusual, and it should be highly conspicuous because that dewlap really does stand out in the environment. A treatment where the robot is performing the natural dewlap display, so this will be familiar to most predators, and a treatment where the robot is not producing the display at all. But again, this is something that predators should be familiar with. We benchmark predation against a conspicuous pink control that's clearly not a food item. And we deployed all these robots into the environment, and we quantified attacks in the plasticine of the model over 3 days. We tested various statistical models associated with different hypotheses. The two I want to focus on is conspicuousness is costly. So these predators should attack the robot with the moving dewlap and the dewlap that's always out because these are the most conspicuous. In contrast, the predator conservative hypothesis predicts that predators should actively avoid the dewlap that's always out because lizards don't do that. So it's unusual, and they should actually prefer to attack the treatments where the dewlap is being used in a naturalistic manner or not at all, even though those particular treatments might actually be less conspicuous. We fit various models and we use model selection, and the predator conservative model was clearly the favorite. And when we look at the empirical data, this is survival analysis. The data is actually deceptively complex. So this is work by Katrina, who's a biostatistician. We've visualized it here as a survival plot, and you can see that the attack rates on the robot that didn't use the dewlap or used it in a naturalistic manner clearly had the highest predation rate. The unusual novel treatment where the dewlap was always out couldn't be statistically distinguished from the control. This means that predators are avoiding novel prey, and it opens the door to the evolution of novel conspicuous signals. There is clear adaptive benefits, increases detection, and also initially there's a negative frequency dependent selection, particularly in mate choice. So this predator conservatism hypothesis would actually open the door to the evolution of these signals because these signals would also avoid the cost of predation. And obviously, this experiment has direct implications for the evolution of warning signals and that initial paradox. It really does seem that predators are conservative in the type of prey that they select. If you're interested in the full-blown project, there's a lot more going on here. The paper has just been published in Prop B. If you would like a behind the scenes, we've written a blog post in excruciating detail about how hard it is to run these experiments. I'll try and be online to answer any questions. If not, send me an email.